we're going to begin with a moment of silence. Close your eyes. That was a moment of silence for your insecurity, because we're gonna fucking annihilate it in this workshop. Let's begin. Thank you so much for coming to this workshop, and congratulations on taking the first step to what you'll consider this to be the defining point of your life. Like when you had the mantle of personality, the mantle of doing things for approval, and you did something, you said, okay, it's more important to me than anything else to be authentic, to live my truth. You're gonna look back at this and be like, this is where everything changed for me. This is the last time that I can remember carrying that weight of a story, carrying that weight of lies, carrying that weight of conflict. I'm very, very happy that you've chosen to take this step with me, and let's just get right to it. I'm going to try and keep these videos really short, because the most important thing that you do is the practice in the workbook. It's really, really different thinking the practice and actually doing it. And I'm not going to be teaching you anything on here that I have not personally done myself, okay? I could tell you my story of what my life was like before I became an authentic person. Literally everything that I did was for approval. I could be anybody that you wanted me to be. And like if I wanted to go out with a guy, I would find out what kind of girls they were into, and I would just morph myself into that. When I would go and visit my family, I would just keep my mouth shut the entire time and let people tell me to shut up and talk over me and all this crap, because that's what I felt they wanted from me, and I was doing it for approval. So you're going to make yourself a sign that you're going to keep up for the entirety of this practice. And this sign is going to have the question on it: am I doing this for approval? And this sign is to remind you to ask yourself this before you do just about anything. And I'm telling you, it's going to break your head open. I guess I will tell you the story of when I had this question sticker up for a really long time, and my mom had invited me to my family reunion, and she asked me if I could bartend it. Now, I had been trying to convince my family that I was not a bartender for the last 10 years, that I could do more than just bartending, which is what they told me was the best it was going to get for me. And I was like really wanting them to see me as something different. So I told my mom, no, I won't be bartending. And the last thing I think anyone needs here is a bit more tequila. But I did agree to cater it. And long story short, my mom's an Aquarius, always kind of like flying off the handle. And I was like, it's cooking for 60 people, because I have a really big family and a really big extended family. So I said, okay, I need 3 days to prep, and I need a whole day to go shopping and a whole day to prep, and then a day to actually do the cooking. Well, I got myself to California, and when I arrived at LAX, like on a shoestring budget, my mom told me, we got drama at home. You can't come until the day before. So long story short, I arrive at my house with 24 hours to prep, cook, and shop for a Oaxacan feast for 60 people. And I'm a Capricorn, so of course I get it done. But every time I went home, I was always struck by like unbearable sadness. And then in leaving, I would have an emotional hangover that just like wouldn't go away. Like literally, if I had energy, like feel good force, I would go and hang out with my family and it would be completely obliterated. I would be in like maggot mode, unable to get off the couch for 3 weeks afterwards. And that's exactly what happened to me after this. And I used to have a locket, a mother of pearl locket that I would carry LSD around in. Those of you that knew me in Los Angeles will definitely remember that necklace. But I remembered that I woke up at like 6 o'clock that morning and I was looking ahead. I was already super bummed to be back home with my family. And I just knew that it was going to be a really shit day. And I remembered that I had a tab of LSD in my locket. And I was like, all right, I could either do this the way I know it's going to be, mechanically sober, and think, and it's going to be exactly what I think it is, because I've been a cook my entire life. I know how much goes into a 60 people cater. But I was like, I'll take this LSD and just see what happens, because at least then it'll be weird. And for those of you that haven't done LSD, like, it's a lot more manageable than mushrooms. Like, you can talk, I can cook for 60, on mushrooms I'd be crying. But on LSD, you know, no problem. I can talk to cops on LSD. So I took this tab of acid, and which made the question, am I doing this for approval, really, really, really burn into my head. And this was the last like family event that I ever went through. I cooked for everybody all day long. Shopped all day long, made margaritas for people when I didn't drink all day long, busted my fucking ass. I had a terrible pipe burn on my leg that I had wrapped so that I could get through standing on it all day, because it had like started to get, I'd gone to a Korean spa when I got to LA, and the lady salt scrubbed the scab off on accident. So I was having a pretty tough time, and my leg was really hurting, but I bandaged it up just like I do with all of my hurt. Cover it up, make it look good, get to work. And I cooked from sun up to sundown. I made a beautiful Oaxacan feast. My family started to show up at 5, and you know, I'm on LSD, so I'm really noticing everything while being like completely in the zone. And I noticed that like everybody else in my family just kind of like shows up, cracks a beer, sit down, kicks off their shoes, you know, and feels completely at home. And meanwhile, I'm like toiling so hard, and I started to become aware in this psychedelic state that like this is the only way that I've ever operated in my family. And at the same time, I was like, all right, well, this is probably the last time I'm going to hang out with my family, so I'm either going to be the real me this whole time while still working. Couldn't happen. But I'm going to do my best to see show the real me and see how that's received. Anyways, I had finally put this whole like meal out. It was 5 o'clock. I had been working nonstop, and with my mom, of course, and my grandmom, who was there, rest in peace. She doesn't rest. Wherever she is, she's getting it done. Wherever she is, she's getting it done. So, you know, this whole time, the question, am I doing this for approval? Am I doing this for approval was really burned and secured in my head. Telling you, like, when you ask yourself this question, you're going to come up across so many instances where you are doing it for approval. And when you know it and you keep doing it, it tears you apart, because you realize you're abandoning the part of yourself that's real. You're abandoning the part of yourself that you've been working so hard to cultivate. And you're doing it so that other people can be more comfortable around you. So I'm telling you, this question will break you apart. It'll break you apart. I ended up having a very big meltdown at the end of that. It wasn't that day because there was too much dishes to do. There was too much work that I had to do, and I had to do that work for approval. I couldn't rest. I couldn't let it down. Oh, sorry, bug. But literally mechanically like killing things. I swear to God, my inner Hitler, and we'll talk about inner Hitler when you get there. I completely recognize that in myself. You see that? Just like automatically like, death to you. I'm your superior. I'm a monster. And but I know that. And so if somebody calls me a monster or someone calls me a Nazi, it won't hurt my feelings, because I'm like, yeah, you know, I mechanically kill things like a fucking psychopath. So, but that's the thing. When you know who you are, nothing has power over you. But the next day I ended up having a really, really big meltdown. And I actually was like, I need to go. I think it was like coming off of LSD. It was the next day. We were at a bowling alley. But I went and I looked in. I was in the bathroom and I was like, oh shit, I haven't unwrapped my leg. And I let, you know, my mom take care of me. So she's like, it's a burn. Get it as wet as possible. Fucking wrap it airtight with things. And with burns, you're just supposed to let them like dry and chill. And so I was like, oh shit, I gotta check my leg. And so I opened up my bandage, and dude, I'm telling you, might have been the LSD, but it was the next day. There was black, like it was like I could see all my veins coming off of this cut, but hospital. And she was like, what? And I was like, you have to take me to the hospital. Like, I'm not okay. And yeah, I realized what, you know, while I'm in the car, I asked myself again, you know, am I doing this for approval? And of course the clarity came through. Yeah, yes, I am doing this for approval. You know why? I'm the 9th out of a family of 11, which means the only time I can ever get attention from my mom is in case of an emergency. And you know who's really not that great in case of an emergency? My mom. But as the 9th out of 11, the only way that I could get undivided attention from my mom was to be in need, was to be sick. So in that moment, I'm like, holy shit, yeah, I am doing this for approval. And then my mom, you know, like the expert at fucking taking people, my mom takes me to the psych ward of the hospital, homie, and drops me off outside, said, just go right in there. Now, she says she didn't mean to do this, but I walk in and there's a really hot guy with face tattoos. I say, maybe I'll sit in the lobby. But I was like, where do I go to fill out a form or whatever? I walk into like some door, you know, and the guy, all of a sudden these two securities are coming out. You can't be in here. And I'm at the psych ward on LSD. I say, fuck this. Went to Walgreens with my mom, doctored it up, and went straight home, where the members of my family who have like actually struggled and are aware of struggling, you know, everybody is going to have mental illness in their life, because mental illness is the clinical term for the objective imbalances in the chakras that we're all going to have at different times of our life. And what's blocking you from being authentic is the heart chakra. The heart chakra is blocked by grief, which they call in clinical world depression, which kind of says like, you know, the sadness that you feel is not proportionate to the suffering that you've experienced. So that's that. But I fucking cried my eyes out while these three very beloved members of my family looked on. I just bawled my eyes out the whole bathtub and crying and crying and crying. And I really want to honor that the members of my family that were there were like, we love you. We love you. And while it didn't exactly feel good to be understood by like the crazies in the family, as it happens, I'm much crazier than everyone else combined. So that's my story of, am I doing this for approval? Would I recommend taking LSD and contemplating this question? Absolutely. And you'll get that unmistakable twinkle in your eye of somebody that's used LSD for the rest of your life. So let's just get started now. Right into the lecture, I wanted to give you a note about the objectivity of this lecture, the objectivity of this whole workshop, and also its reusability. So you can actually do it over and over again. But I am no longer giving lifetime access to my work, because honestly, it's so valuable. It gets better every time. You get more out of it when you're doing it with a group. So you have 6 months to do this workshop, and then it's going bye-bye. If you don't want to buy it again and you know it's reusable, really commit this to heart. Pay total attention when I'm speaking, because I'm speaking to you, because I know what it's like. Of course, I haven't had your experiences. Of course, I don't understand what it's like to be you, but I understand what it's like to work your whole life for approval. And you're never going to make other people happy. At some point, you have to watch out for you. You have to be proud of you, and you have to get your own back, and you have to share your truth. So all of my workshops are objective, meaning that I'm not just projecting my stuff onto you. So this is not going to be a workshop of me telling you, hey, take LSD because it worked for me. I'm going to say, you ask yourself, am I doing this for approval? Because that'll work for anybody. Another way you can be sure that this is a step-by-step path to authenticity is that this runs, like all my workshops, on an Enneagram. An Enneagram is sacred math. It's every single event runs on an Enneagram, whether you know it or not. And if you want to know how to do this, it's not a quick conversation. But in my workshop, Awaken 2, might be called something different by the time this comes out, you can do it in part 2. After I awake you, objectively, we can start to work on the math of it. And something else that you need to know about this is that an Enneagram is always cyclical. So the first lesson and the last lesson of this are going to look a little bit similar. The first lesson is going to be called lying. And the 10th lesson is going to be called truth. Lying, we're going to take you from lying to truth. And then at that point, you're going to realize, oh, there's even another place in my life where I've been lying to myself, and you're going to bring that into integrity and come back around again.